Okay, let's get into this. Really quick, I wanted to give a special shout out to Gail King. Obviously, she's the host of CBS's morning show, also best friends with Oprah Winfrey. Well, guess what? Gail is going to be an astronaut very soon, and I just want to give a big old message to Gail King. Don't go, Gail. Do not go on this spaceship. Gail King, if you've heard her talk about this, it just got announced last week. She is going to be part of an all-female crew for Jeff Bezos's Blue Origin space flight. So the Blue Origin is this thing that you go like it takes you into space. It's not like you're going to go into a space station and stay there. It's a very quick flight. But this is the thing that these billionaires have been trying to get going of like commercial space flight. So we have like a who's who of women that are going to be participating in this. We have singer-songwriter Katy Perry. We have Jeff Bezos' girlfriend, Lauren Sanchez, and Gail King, but we also have NASA engineer Aisha Bowe, research scientist Amanda Gwynn, film producer Carrie Ann Flynn. So it is an all-female crew, and it's only an 11-minute flight. So that is the internationally recognized boundary of space. And they've done 10 other crewed flights so far that have made this trip. So it's still in its infancy. They've only done 10 trips so far. But this will be the first time in 62 years that women have traveled to space without a man on board. By the way, this is probably a dream trip for most of you women out there. Tell me no men? Hell yeah. I guess the last time this happened was in 1963 when Soviet cosmonaut Valentina Tereshkova became the first woman in space. Gail is suiting up. The thing that I find, the reason I said don't go is that Gail King, she's now been on like the news crying about this, saying that I am so scared to go. She like conferred with Oprah and Oprah encouraged her to go. And then I go on TikTok and some astrologer is like, Gail, don't go. I just read your chart. This is not good. Your body is telling you, your mind is telling you not to go. Don't go. And I was like, oh my God, Gail, please, we can't lose Gail King. Are you kidding me? No, Gail, don't do this. It's probably going to be fine. But I mean, Katy Perry, Lauren Sanchez, and Gail King on a Jeff Bezos space flight. It's going to be in the spring. So we don't have an exact date, but it is going to be in the spring. But this is one of those things I just like, I don't think I would do it. Nobody's offering, I mean, I've had people just like, I want to send you to space, but like in an angry way. So I think that's really. And do you think Katy Perry's going to just like be singing the whole time? I don't know. You're probably not able to talk, but what an interesting crew. Also, Hannah Berner in the news. Highest highs and lowest lows. That's how life is, right? So her and Paige DeSorbo from Giggly Squad, they had this amazing opportunity. They hosted the live stream for the Vanity Fair, the Oscars. Like after the Oscars, they have the big Vanity Fair party. It's like a who's who. All the biggest celebrities always go to this Vanity Fair party, and they were doing the live stream, and they got to talk to like Hailey Bieber. They were talking to all these celebrities. And I did not get to watch it. I mean, like, listen, I can realize something like that. I was like, that is such an amazing opportunity for anybody. Like I was just at the Oscars the other day. Like any red carpets I've been able to be on, I realize what a huge opportunity it is, but it's also a huge opportunity that you can potentially really mess up sometimes or make some really big mistakes. So you want to come prepared. And I think nowadays, and I'm not judging this, is that a lot of the biggest influencers, they get these opportunities because they already have this very strong audience that they have cultivated through their hard work through the years. And listen, I have not been a fan of Hannah. Like I always say, I was a fan of Hannah, and then that last season of Summer House, man, I was not a fan of Hannah Berner. But I always say, like, she got off Bravo, or she didn't get asked back. And with Giggly Squad and Paige DeSorbo, she really built up her career. Like, you can't take that away. from Hannah. They sold out Radio City Music Hall twice. That's kind of legendary. But I don't listen to their podcast, right? So I started watching these clips because on TikTok there was one specific clip that people are very upset about, and that is involving Megan Thee Stallion, the rapper. And if you watched our video on YouTube, I did a full fashion recap, and Megan Thee Stallion, very fashion forward. She had these big like nipple covers, and that was like part of her outfit. And I was like, hell yeah. I mean, it looked really cool. Well, anyways, you could tell that both of these ladies were very excited. And how would you not be? I would have been a nervous wreck. I would have been sweating over everybody, but I also probably would have been prepared with just very specific questions. And from the clips I saw, because then I just started looking around for clips of them, you could tell they were very excited. They talked over each other a lot, which is also something that I do when I get excited. So these were like, I was looking at it from kind of probably a different angle than a lot of people on TikTok were, because I also know in those situations that it's so nerve-wracking, and it is very exciting. And I also think it potentially hurt them that they were doing this together. I think if they get this opportunity again, they should split this up. I mean, Paige should do this once, or maybe Hannah do another one. I don't know, but I think that it almost kind of enveloped whoever they were talking, and they just started shouting over each other, and kind of not egging each other on, but it was that like, yeah, which I have done before. So it's like nobody is perfect, and you don't know what it would be like until you're in that situation. Now, the bad part of this is they're interviewing Megan Thee Stallion, and Hannah's just like, oh my God, I listen to your music every day. I start my morning with you. And she's like, I'm almost going to cry. And she says to Megan, she's like, when I want to fight someone, I listen to your music. And that is not Megan Thee Stallion's music. It's not fight music. It's like hype music. It's like, bang, yeah, confident music, right? That's the message. And especially somebody who went through what they, with Tory Lanez, who is now in prison for shooting that gun. I believe that was at Kylie Jenner's place, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, we don't want to bring up violence. Also, this is a black woman. We don't want to throw that narrative out. We don't want to kind of create microaggressions. And, don't roll your eyes at this. This is a very real thing. And of course, I think Hannah made this mistake in the moment to say that. I think she was truly, and I don't need to speak for Hannah Berner of all people. I'm a white dude also. So this is probably not my place to speak on, but I did, obviously I saw what the issue here was. No, but what I thought was also really cool is that you see what a pro Megan Thee Stallion is, because she immediately took the comment in and kind of gracefully pivoted and took the kind of redirected the conversation back to self-love. She's like, she says, because you want to throw that fighting shit out the window and get cute and be a bad bitch. But when people are talking shit, then Berner said, when people are talking shit, I go, turn on Meg Thee Stallion. And Megan said, body, yaddy, yaddy, I look beautiful. I look so great, kind of interjecting over Hannah. And Megan was just kind of saying no, this is great. This is music to make you feel amazing. And I think Hannah said that, but then she weirdly directed it saying when I want to fight somebody, which I imagine she also meant Kyle Cook. But yeah, this didn't go over too well. And watching the clip, it is very awkward, even though I think Megan Thee Stallion, you can tell what a pro in the industry she is, because she just kind of stood there. It wasn't angry, wasn't anything like that, just very professional, very poised. And you had Paige and Hannah just which is that's very much my energy as well. But a lot of people are up in arms about this. So I think Hannah, I hope she will make some sort of comment about this. And I don't know, people were like, oh, she'll never work for this Vanity Fair thing again. I don't know about that. People are talking about this. And that, any publicity is publicity, you don't know this, just because this is angered people does not mean, they have good PR people. They have good, you never know. So I don't think this is in any way something that is going to prevent them from getting further jobs. But I hope when they get the next gig like this, I hope they are just so much more prepared. And really, like, they should have teams of like telling people what to stay away from. Even if you mean well in certain situations, sometimes it just doesn't read that way to a larger audience. And the important thing about these events is that, you know, the Bravo audience knows these ladies, or maybe some of the comedy audience knows Hannah Berner, right? Or the podcast audience knows them. But this is a whole new audience that doesn't know who the hell they are. So it's this golden opportunity to kick ass and like get to that next level of like, these ladies rock. I love who these ladies are. I want to see them more. So that's like the hard part of this whole career, is because you realize there's like these golden opportunities and it's a lot of pressure to not screw it up. And I think, you know, I think it was such a cool thing. They did it. It was probably so exciting. And I hope the next time they just do a little bit more work and maybe just practice pausing, you know, and letting one person speak. And I'm saying this to myself as well. Okay. That is that. Now let's get to the main attraction, Mr. Jax Taylor. Yep, folks, we are talking about Jax once again, but let's start with Brittany Cartwright's comments on this, because Brittany, I don't think she knew he was going on this Hot Mic podcast. I think this is potentially news to her. And so she posted on her Instagram story about 6 hours ago. It's about like 3 in the afternoon. Brittany wrote, "His addiction," speaking about Jax, "unfortunately has done irreparable damage to my son and I. I've spent years trying to help him. I wish more than anyone I could say how proud I am of him today, but I'd be lying." I think she means I wish more than anything. "His actions will speak for themselves. And to those asking why I stayed if I knew he had a problem all these years, you can't help who you fall in love with. I've done absolutely everything in my power to get him the help he desperately needed. Unfortunately, I was naive and believed his empty promises and his pleads to change for years. Once you have a child with someone, it's not easy to leave. It took everything in my power to gather the strength to walk away. For those that have been through similar, you get it. For those that question me, that's okay. I'm in a much better place now." So this is from Brittany, the mother of his child, after this revelation. And I think that's so important to start there, because this is the person, and you know, you can be like, oh, she signed up for this, blah, blah, blah. But this is a person, they have a child together. And Jack sometimes, from what we see, sometimes will tell us, the audience, before the people in his actual life that he is supposedly close with, right? He will not confer with them. He'll just kind of blurt this out. And it's in some ways a narcissistic quality, right? Because you're almost looking out for yourself. Now, once again, that does not take away from him actually getting help. But once again, he has been proven to be somebody that bends the truth over years and years and years. That's the unfortunate thing about being on a reality television show, is that you have years of proof to back all of this up. And that is his ex. So I think proof is in the pudding. So it really is going to kind of determine what he does with this opportunity. He lets us know he is 82, 83 days sober. And that is nothing to laugh about. That's really amazing. If that is true, that is so solid. But I'm going to go through the transcript here for the Hot Mic podcast. Now, Alex Baskin, just a reminder, he is the producer of Vanderpump Rules. He is the producer of The Valley. He is the producer of Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. And another thing that I find interesting, because he does get these really good interviews and they're able to really open up to him. I think he's very trusted by all of the people that work for him, and you can get the best, not gossip, but you can get the best stories. You can get the best out of these people if somebody trusts you. I've always talked about that. Like, I'm so fascinated with interviews, but I also realize with interviews, you have to gain the trust of someone to make it stellar. You have to, like, you know, for when I talk to people, you have to like kind of try to get some kind of trust really quickly. And that's almost impossible. So I really enjoy this podcast, actually. I also want to point out, just like a lot of our relationships, you don't know what goes on behind the scenes. We talk about Dorit and PK, where they said they were having blowout fights. We never really saw it on Beverly Hills. This season, all of a sudden, there's like this problem. And it's like, oh, well, I would have loved to have seen that on the show. So when somebody presents a certain image on Instagram, and, oh, we're happy, we are pregnant, we have this, you know, that that is sometimes not the truth. That's not the reality. Life is so much tougher than that. And I think as I get older, I kind of realize that as well. And I think you do as well. When you go on Instagram and you see this amazing thing, you don't realize the neuroses that goes into, like, the happiest people are the people that usually don't even, they're having such a flippin' happy time. They don't even want to post on Instagram. So, Alex starts the podcast saying, hey, you were just on a few months ago. You wanted to come on today because there's something that you wanted to talk about. And Jax is kind of nervous. He's like, I'm really, really waiting for a long time to do this, and I'm nervous. We have season 2 of The Valley coming out shortly, which is why I think he did this interview. And I feel like sometimes because there's so many cast members that the whole story of each person is not told, fully. And I kind of wanted to talk about the struggles that I've been going through. And I kind of wanted everyone to know, that this is what happened. So he's kind of just rambling. And then he finally comes with it. He says, I'm an addict. I have substance issues, primarily with cocaine. He says, that's hard to say out loud. I've been dealing with this, I think the last on and off since I was 23. He says, I'm 45 now. He said, I've been, there were times when I would stop doing it, but then there were times where I would go heavy on it. I think a lot of people who watch Vanderpump Rules over the years could kind of tell that I was on something. You think? It's not about the pasta. It is about the pasta. Yes, you can, just in your head, try to think of like the top, I'm the number one guy in the group. Every season finale, it seemed like Jax would just be so amped up. I even posted something on my Instagram today. It was when Brittany had cheated with Faith, and I believe Brittany's mom came into town unexpectedly, and Jax was like, his eyes were like bugging out. And I remember watching this, and I took a screenshot and I zoomed in, and you could see like white powder coming down his nose. I posted it again today because I will always remember this, and his eyes are just bugging out. I think this is something that has been a part of his life for a long time. But he said, obviously, people could tell, production and people, they didn't know what I was doing. So he lets production off the hook there. He says everything I was doing on my own, but I was just, on that train and I couldn't get off. And then people ask, do you have an alcohol problem too? And he said, I don't think I do, but the two go hand in hand. So I can't do cocaine without drinking. So I just gave up both. I'm proud to say I'm 83 days sober, which is the longest I've ever gone in my life, he says, without either. But he says, this is the longest I've gone since I was 21 without, or just going this long without anything. And he says, it feels really good. I just want to let people know that this is really, really tough disease, and it's a really tough sickness. I've been doing it for so long, and you can say hiding it, not necessarily hiding it, lying about it forever. And I just had enough's enough. There's this year, it was probably the hardest year of my life. I would say my father's death was the hardest year until this year. I'm going through a divorce right now, which is extremely difficult. And that's when Brittany and I separated. That's when the addiction got worse. And I think we had heard rumor, like, listen, I only have two eyes. I see what I see, also I never know. Sometimes you're like, oh, that's really very amped up behavior, but Adderall, Red Bull, those things can produce that same kind of behavior. But even when I went to Jax's saloon, I think with Mary Payne and Ingrid from Pink Shade, Jax was like bopping around that. Like he was like, "Rrr." And somebody had sent me a Reddit thread saying that he was spending a lot of time in the one bathroom at Jax's saloon. Now, you can't really put a lot of stock into Reddit threads sometimes, but just with my own eyes, I saw that, but that doesn't mean that was happening. But I do think now we're seeing that probably was the deal. You go out, you're at the bar, you get a little bump, you have a drink, and it just becomes a really bad habit that I think he has had since even before Vanderpump Rules. The other thing is, he says, what I say about Jax, he's such an interesting person because he does say all the right things. You're sitting there going like, yeah, you shouldn't hide anymore. This is a disease, which is all true. But he has said this many times, like the last season of Vanderpump Rules when he said his brain was bruised and he doesn't know why he does these things. These are all very true, but then sometimes the action, and we can say that about ourselves too, is that I can notice an issue with myself, but do I take action about it? So Jax is so great at self-diagnosing, but does he take action? And I don't mean the action of obviously he checked into a facility for a couple of weeks, which is really awesome, but then after that, it's a slog. You got to do day in, day out meetings. You got to stay on top of it. You know, I have so many people in, friends in AA that it really became a part of their personality. And I mean that in a positive way, that it really like, no, I commit to meetings, I help, I do, you know, they have this whole code that they live by. And I'm not saying that AA is the only thing out there, because some people don't need that, but it is something that I think if you are so used to substance abuse, it's not just something that you can shake off with a 17-day stay at a facility, right? Anyways, so in the interview, he says, I think at that point I hit rock bottom and, you know, I had to go to rehab, and this is where we are right now. He says, Alex kind of says something like, yeah. And then Jax is like, I never said this in my life. So to come out and say that I have an addiction, I have a sickness that that I have to work on the rest of my life is a really big deal for me. Obviously, I think if people known that there's something off, but for me to say that comes out of my mouth is like a huge weight lifted off of my shoulders. And it probably is a huge weight lifted off his shoulders, but it is darkly comic that it's like, yeah, man, we knew you had that weight. We know, man. Like water is wet, the sky is blue. We knew, brother. Welcome. Come on in. The water is fine. We knew. So Alex says, I know that you wanted to be able to say this, but I know that you've also struggled saying it out loud. So the producer reality star relationship is so interesting to me. It almost feels like a therapist at times. And that's why I really do want to talk to Alex, Mr. Baskin sometime, or any producer, because I feel like that is one of their jobs. They're also trying to create commerce. They're trying to sell commercials, right? They're trying to create something entertaining. But at the same time, they do genuinely care about these people. I will go to the grave. I know that. I know for a fact that I believe that they might not do everything the right way. They also know that in some ways they're going to make these people look horrible because they're putting a camera on their actual behavior. So Jax goes, I didn't think anybody would like, he's kind of mumbling. He says, I think I've worked really, really hard on my sobriety. It didn't happen the first time. It happened the second time. What I mean by that is that I had to go to rehab twice. And we'll get into that later. It's a sickness. It's a disease. Alex says, I want to focus to begin with on the second rehab stay, and we'll get into the first as well. What prompted you to go get help the second time? Now, the first time was like what I talked about, I believe, at the beginning of the show, when that was in July of 2024, when they were filming The Valley Season 2. But the second time we didn't know about. So Jax says there was this incident. Brittany and I were actually on the way to a doctor's appointment for our son, and her phone was connected to my car, and a man's name came up, and it just triggered me. So I think he's insinuating somebody maybe that was involved with Brittany in some way. He says, I did slip after the first incident, and I did take substance the night before, and the next day is always the worst the next day is the worst. I just lost it. I went crazy in the car. I was yelling. And the worst part about all this, and this is why I checked myself in, is that my son was in the back seat. And that's when I knew, I'm like, shit, I have a problem. It's still there. It's still there. Like, I was very aware I was yelling. And then I turn my head and I see my son back there. And there was just utter disgust. And Brittany was like, you need to go back. And I didn't even put up a fight like the first time. Because the first time he had to be dragged kicking and screaming. So I wonder if we're going to see that in the Valley. But he says, I kind of put up a little bit of fight for the first one. I was like, are you right? You're right. I didn't put up a fight. I got to go back. Alex says, and then Brittany reached out to a few people, including Lori, the publicist. Lori, the publicist, represents both of them. And I feel like Lori must be like just, I don't know how publicists do it, and especially reality show publicists, because she's a publicist for both of them. So she's handling both, like she approved him doing this podcast and then probably helped Brittany write her response for the Instagram. She must be like, I wonder if this is like, obviously this is what she does. And she doesn't just represent them. She represents like Bachelor people, tons of people. But I wonder how sick of this situation she is, or if she is just ride or die. But she says, Alex says, reached out to Lori, your publicist, Ryan, your manager, Ryan Revel, and me, he says. We talked about the incident. You agreed to go, and this was over the holidays. So it was a very dark time for you. So this was over Christmas. So Jack says, yeah, it was a very dark time, worst year of my life. I can't even tell you. He goes, I didn't stay the full time. I ended up staying 17 days. For me, that was enough. I was like, you know what? Another 14 is not going to do anything. I know that I'm good. I'm okay. Now, history will teach you, where if you just read about this at all, that is what your mind is going to tell you. And usually that is wrong, unfortunately. You're not the best judge of when everything is good. Our minds lie to us. And obviously, your first thing is, I mean, I was talking to Jason Waller from The Hills a couple of weeks ago on this show. He went to rehab, what did he say, like 13, 14 times before anything clicked. And so it's really, it's scary. But he said, yeah, I just needed to get back and regroup. And I felt like when I hit the 17th day, I'm done. I won't do it again. I'm done. I made a mistake, and I felt like it was the right decision for me at that time to leave right then. I was there on my own. I wasn't forced to be there, but I felt myself that I was ready to go. So obviously he's really like, no, it was good. It was good. I swear I'm ready to go. Now, Alex says, I want to touch on a few things. First is when you got the diagnosis. So when you were told at the facility, look, this is really, did you know going in that you were going in for addiction? Did you think you were going in for behavior? Not addiction, behavior. And Jax goes, all of it. I was going to get to the bottom of it. Now, when myself and my manager and Lori, we all kind of came together and researched where I was going to go. I have such a great team. And we say, hey, listen, this is the best place for you because it kind of talks about everything, mental health, substance abuse, drug addiction, all that stuff. You're going to get everything out of this. And that's kind of what I needed because I personally don't think that drugs and alcohol are the problem for, are the problem. There's issues there that there's issues with their lives. And then people use, drugs and alcohol to kind of mask the issues that they're going through. I'm a firm believer in drugs and alcohol are never the problems. People just don't fix their problems. So they're too lazy and then they use drugs and alcohol to mask their issues instead of fixing things. Yes, right? But also, there is a physical addiction and a mental addiction that happens with these substances. There's these synapses firing when you're putting these drugs into your system. And so when you do not have that, it really messes with your equilibrium overall. But yes, of course, there is a underlying problem. Some people don't. Some people it's genetic, right? But there are underlying problems. So I understand what he's saying, and he's very good at saying it. I mean, Jax is very good. And like, if Jax really commits to this, and like I said the first time when thought it was very brave that he went to the facility in July, if he really commits to this is somebody that can be inspiring to people if he really commits to it. And I just think sometimes when it's the boy who cried wolf, or not the boy who cried wolf, but just somebody that has lied repeatedly, it's hard to trust this person. It's like only time will tell, is kind of Brittany's message said. So he said, I was in therapy the first time, 30 days, 7 hours of therapy a day for 6 days a week. That was the first visit. It was intense. And you see the doctors, you go to therapy, personal therapy. They allow you to go to the gym once a day. And there's a nurse that follows you to the gym. He says, like, this was just utterly embarrassing for me because I'm going to Crunch Gym, which is a very big gym, and people know who I am, and they're kind of looking at me, but they also see this nurse walking right next to me, so it was like tough. That was in July. So that was weird too. I'd never known that in rehab, I don't think a lot of rehab facilities do this, where they'll send a person to go to the gym with you. Oh man, I wish I was at Crunch that day. But Jack said, I did slip when I got out the first time, but I learned so much the first time it was my fault. But he never told us the first time was for drugs and alcohol. It was mental health, remember? So Alex says, you weren't sober the first time, right? And Jack says, the first time I went through, I stayed sober for, I think, like a week, after a week or two after. And then I started slowly going back into the game again. And I thought, okay, I can handle this. I got a grip on it. And then Alex says, because you were really at the time grappling with the bipolar diagnosis. And Jax is like, oh yeah, we'll get into that. So when I went in, I've always known something is wrong with me. I'm a very stubborn guy. I don't go to the doctor. I'm like my dad. I don't go to the doctor unless my arms are falling off. I'll just put some bleach on it, I mean, this dude did actually he used black spray paint for his bald spot. That's and we can judge, but I've done some real stupid shit like that too. No, I won't get it. Anyways, he says, I just refuse to go to the doctor. I refuse to accept things. I'm one of those guys. Like, if I have cancer, don't tell me. I don't want to know. And for years, I've known. Everyone told me, Jax, something's fucking wrong with you. You're not all there. And when my marriage was getting, it's been tough a lot, but when my marriage was getting really bad towards the last 3 years, Brittany's like, you need to get some help. You need to figure out what is wrong with you. And, just to kind of get her off my back, I went to a physician, not somebody who's studied in therapy. I just went to my family physician. I go, listen, my wife thinks I'm depressed. Can I have some medication for it? Sure. She just gave it to me. There was no diagnosis. I self-diagnosed myself. I'm like, something's got to be wrong with it. I'm probably just depressed, which is true. I was very sad. A lot happened. COVID, pregnancy. I lost my job. Vanderpump Rules. Not, that was the job. A lot was going on during the time, and I didn't know what to do for money. My wife was pregnant. I was fucking depressed. And so in my head, I'm like, that's it. I'm depressed. Doctor, give me something. Okay, here's some Lexapro. Went on Lexapro. It didn't do anything, he says. Lexapro was my first SSRI, I believe. I was taking it before I was going into rehab. And then when I went into the facility, after they broke me down, the doctors are going over my symptoms, sitting there, and they're like, you're not depressed, you're bipolar. And I'm like, I'm on Lexapro and it's making me even angrier. And they're like, you need to get off of that. That's not for you. We have something for you. You're definitely bipolar 2AT bipolar 2, it's called. And you definitely suffer from obsessive compulsive disorder, which Alec Baldwin, we know on the Baldwin reality show, suffers from the same thing. So we're going to get you on new medication, Jax said. And I got to say, since for the first time in my 45 years of life, because I have severe anger issues, too severe to the point where I literally have no patience for anything or anyone, and I don't like people. And if things aren't going my way, I'm going to get pissed off. Yeah, if things aren't going to going on his way, he'll get on Twitter. You'll know Jax is angry. And he goes, that's just the way it was. I've been like that forever. And I would, I've done it with my friends, my family, everyone. I fly off the handle. So for the first time taking this, finally getting on this medication, I was like, oh, I mean it. It took a week or two to kick in, but I was in the facility, so I had no reason to get mad. But I was like, wow, I just let things roll off my back. I've never in my life just let things roll off my back, be okay with certain things not going my way. Usually when things don't go my way, I get really angry and I take it out on my friends or my family. So this guy has a very big anger issue. And yes, there is something that we can say that's positive, that you're being open and honest about that. But once again, it's something, and we don't know Jax personally, but it's something that, of course, we know this from watching Jax all of these years. He says, the reason I would take it out on Brittany is that she's the one I could come home to at night, right? So during the day, I would leave, drive through the day. If I go to the grocery store, somebody pissed me off at the grocery store. Somebody pissed me off at the DMV. Somebody cut me off. Well, remember, he just had a hit and run a couple months ago. He goes, instead of solving those problems in the moment and being okay with it, I would store all this anger up throughout the day. I go home for dinner, and who's in my line? It's Brittany. She didn't do anything. I'm just so angry that I would just take it out on her, and it was not fair, and I knew what I was doing. Now, mind you that the drugs were affecting me too at the same time, and that people don't know with cocaine is the next day is the worst. You feel like absolute shit. You feel like the bottom of the barrel. You have zero serotonin. You are just angry and depressed. Anybody who's done cocaine will tell you that the next day is brutal. It's weird why we do it for 2 hours of fun in the next 48 hours of misery, but we do it. And unfortunately, and the only time that Brittany and I really have ever gotten angry is the next day after a bender. For me, that's the only time I've ever had a shouting match. I've never done a sober shouting match with Brittany ever. Okay, well, we'll take his word for it. But unfortunately, I was doing drugs so much that it was a lot. Alex is like, right. And that your natural irritability would turn into outright anger. So he's like, yeah, I already have anger issues without the cocaine. So that's interesting. He just kind of said the anger issues were usually from the cocaine, never sober issues. But then he was like, no, I do have anger issues without the cocaine as well, because Alex kind of pushed back a little bit. So then it gets into the second stay with California state law. He says, they're not legally allowed to take your phone because a lot of people gave him guff that he had his phone at the mental health facility. But then he says after the first 3 days, they did take my phone away. Then they gave it to me. I think the first 3 days they kept the phone and then they gave it to him after that. And Jax says, I think the problem is I wasn't fully invested the first time I went in. So this is really interesting if you listen to this in conjunction with the first Alex Baskin Hot Mic podcast he did with Jax, where he says he was taking it very seriously. So it's one of those slippery slope Jax things where you want to believe him, but I feel like every time it's, and I think a lot of us do this, is that, oh, I get it now. I'm really committed now, right? He said, I felt like, that I can get through this. Let's just make people happy. I'll get what I have to say out of here and get the fuck out of here. Like, I just wasn't taking it seriously. I should have never used my phone the first time. I should have put my phone away, and I'm paying all this money to be here. Let's get something out of it. Let's use this fucking place and learn about yourself and try to figure out what the fuck is wrong with you. Alex says, and when you count out to this, and when you count out to this will be on the this will be on the show this season, Alex says. You were repeatedly saying when you were asked about what your takeaway was from being there, you said, I'm not an addict. My drug of choice is anger. So this is why this interview is important. And Mr. Baskin, or anybody that works for your production company, if you're listening to this, and you're probably way ahead of me, use the footage, because this is filmed as well. Use the footage to intercut both of these interviews, to intercut on this season of The Valley. When he says my drug of choice is anger, cut this piece right here and put it in right after that. I think that would make for really gripping television. I'm not joking at all. I'm saying this is how you should do it. But Jack says, I didn't think at that time I was an addict. Now it's one of those things that, like, if you hear any other addicts, right, I'm not the problem, you are. I blame everyone else but myself. That's a token addict move. So he knows the verbiage now. He's learning. I hope he's really, but there's something about learning and there's something about actually living it. And I hope he can live this, because it seems like, okay, because we've heard, see, I hate this because I'm supportive of people getting help, but we've just heard, like, he knows what to say. He says, I'm a strong man. I'm okay, I'm good, I'll stop. And then a week went by, and then I'm like, okay, one drink's not going to do anything, right? This is after the first time. And like, the drinking wasn't the problem. I have 2 drinks and I'm good. But after that 2 drinks, I'm looking for a bag of cocaine. So that's why people say, well, if it's drinking is not the problem, then why? But both go hand in hand. So I had to stop. But so to get back to the stay, why I took the second stay a little bit differently is because Lori, the publicist, and Ryan, his manager, came to be like, okay, now we're going to do it my way. We did it your way the first time. Clearly that didn't fucking work. We're going to do it our way this time. We're going to talk to the therapist every day. You're going to have our phone numbers. You're not going to be on your phone. You're going to be doing this. You're going to do it our way. And this is interesting. So I saw Brittany's live podcast in New York the week after Thanksgiving. So we're right on the precipice of this happening. And you could tell that night, Brittany was being very, she wasn't talking shit about Jax, but you could tell that she was going through a lot with Jax. Alex says, why not stay the full time? Why leave after 17 days? Jax says, I felt like I should have, to be honest. See, he contradicts himself. He goes, I felt like I should have, to be honest. I could have left sooner, but I just felt like the second time around I was in there. I'm like, I just needed a little bit of, sorry, the transcription's a little weird here. He says, I learned to ride a bike, and I was doing good, and then I fell, and I just needed a little bit of, I needed to go back just to be like maybe a little bit of humble pie, maybe a little piece of, okay, listen, this is the problem. Addiction is sickness, is bigger than you think it is. I know you think you're a man and you can control it all, and you're this, but you can't. This is why you're back here, because this drug is bigger than you, and you need to take it seriously, and you need to not half-ass it. And I was like, you're right. And I dug deep, and I took over like the groups in therapy. I tried to be a mentor to some people, and I loved it. The second time, I was really a little bit more into it because I was a little bit more, man, I was just fucking here. It was embarrassing. But then I used it. I'm like, I just left this place literally a month ago and I'm already fucking back. It's embarrassing, but I use that as like, even somebody like me, who on paper has it all. I'm very fortunate. I have a healthy child. I have a healthy wife. I had a house. I have everything going, and I still found a way to fuck it up. And I think that was important because most people that are in rehab don't have anything to lose. I had a lot to lose. That's not necessarily true, but I get what he's saying. I had a lot to lose, so people were looking up to me. They're like, wow, this guy's got it all. What the fuck is he doing? We don't have anything. We're doing this. We get it, So I think people were liking that a little bit. Alex says, what have you done since you left to maintain your sobriety? Because obviously, it's a cliche. Obviously, as a cliche goes for, because obviously the one day at a time thing, sometimes that can be a cliche. Jack says it's extremely one day at a time. The big thing here is my son. He is my drive. He's my number one driver for this. I'm just like, I can't do it anymore. I'm 45 years old. There's got to be a point where I say, dude, enough's enough. You had your fun. You had a good time. you're still alive. It's time to get out while you're ahead. And I said, listen, obviously I'm not the type of person who can have one drink and be okay. It's just not in my cards. I had to stop. I was going to lose custody. I'm embarrassing I guess you can call my ex-wife. I'm embarrassing myself. Nobody's looking at me seriously. They're like, I'm just here. He goes again. So I want to do it for myself. Like, I can kick this. I can do it. Is it hard sometimes? Yes. But I think how I look at it is the next day, how I'm going to feel the next day. How am I going to feel the next day? Like, for instance, there was an event at my bar last night and people are always like, we don't want to drink around you. I'm like, don't not drink around me. I don't want people to walk on eggshells around me and be like, oh, we don't want to drink, because I used to make fun of the guys that were like me. And now I want people to enjoy, have fun. I have to get used to that. And if people just walk around me on eggshells, no one's going to want to hang out with me. It's like, oh, we don't want to bring the sober guy. He's kind of a Debbie Downer, and I'm not. I still have fun. I just switch over to Celsius now. I just get hopped up on Celsius. Holy shit, you guys. I think I don't know if you listened to me last year. I had my first Celsius. I thought I was having a heart attack. Holy shit. You think Red Bull? Like, that's Celsius. I was up for a week. Anyways, Jack says, I have a cup of coffee. But yeah, I don't mind people drinking in front of me. It hasn't bothered me. I'm still doing events. I still do appearances. But I'm very regimented now. Which, by the way, this is where I really believe Jax. I do know that he likes a very regimented program. But that's why I think, and I don't know if Alex asked this, I think AA, would he dabble in AA? Would he try this? I think it would give him great support and a community of people and people that have been through this for years and years and years. But he says, I'll take some pictures with people, and after that, I'll go right to my hotel. Before, I would wander around, end up meeting fans at a bar, drinking 25 shots, no more. And Alex is like, that leads to nothing good. He's like, yeah, nothing good. I'm just a people pleaser, but also, people pleaser. And I just want to make sure everybody has a good time. And I'll be like, okay, I'll do a shot. But it's caused my mental health to be fucked. Alex says, tell me about what's coming out with the means in terms of accountability, because obviously there's no hiding. There's going to be a lot of scrutiny when you do go to bars going forward. And by the way, this is what Jax knows. I mean, this is what's hard. There's huge scrutiny in anybody that's on reality television, but especially Jax. So if anybody's around Jax at a bar, that's going on Reddit. There's going to be eyewitness accounts. That is just our fan base. It is so intense. Listen, I'm doing a podcast about this, right? I mean, this is people pay attention. But he says, yeah, you make a lot of appearances. All eyes will be on you. What does that mean to you? And Jax says, I've kind of turned this appearance thing around about not only part of the show. We like to answer questions about the show and all that, but I've kind of turned it into mental health and sobriety. I talk about it now a lot instead of talking about, tea and everything going on. I kind of turn around and be like, I was struggling during this time. I've been on substance and this is how I got around it. So I'm using now those appearances. So I think there's a very real problem, but he's also saying, he's able to use this to say, this is why I've been an asshole for all these years. He says, it's almost like I'm doing a lecture. I'm turning it around instead of gossiping about Sheena, Lala, or Kristen or whatever. I'm kind of like, hey, I'm turning it like, this is what I'm going through. I was struggling. I'm using this as therapy for me. And I believe Lala today put out like a video or something saying she was in support of Jax doing this and sobriety. But he goes, I love talking about it. I love kind of being vulnerable about it. I've never in my life until right now. But see, this is so weird. Just having watched Jax through the years, he does have these moments where he is very vulnerable on screen. He's told, even the second season where he's trying to win Stassi back, there's just been so many conversations where he's been vulnerable. I've never considered that his issue overall. But he said, I've never been honest about my sobriety or my addiction until now. I'll always leave things out. I never give you the full story. This is the full story, and I'm really happy. I'm really excited about it. Still a very new in the sobriety thing, and it's going to take a lot of work. Alex says, what work are you doing to ensure your continued sobriety? He says, right now I'm going to therapy. I go to therapy once a week. Probably should be going a little bit more. I hate how he throws in, probably should be doing a little bit more. I'm going to be getting ready to I think I'm going to start trying to do a little bit of outpatient. I'm okay right now, but I need to maybe double up a little bit and do a little bit of outpatient. A little taste of a little dab of outpatient. I check in with the therapist once a week. I go to therapy on Mondays. I'm drug tested every week. Okay, this is great. I love this part because that's probably part of the custody agreement. I'm drug tested every week, and that's something that I chose to do. I'm the one that chose to do that. Now, I love that part. Jack says, I'm also, I want the results, which is a big HIPAA law on certain these kinds of things. But I said, you know what? I need to be held accountable. I want to be drug tested every Monday. I want you to text my ex-wife every Monday with the results. I want you to text my team every Monday with the results. And they're like, are you sure you want to do this? And he said, absolutely. I will be here at every 9 a.m. every Monday morning. I'll be testing because it makes me feel better. It makes me like, if I have this idea to slip, I'll be like, I'm going to be tested on Monday. I'm going to lose my job. It's accountability. I like this part of it. I mean, this really is consequence here. So I think is really something to be proud of. But he said, I've been given wiggle room my whole life. I've been put on a pedestal. I'm the golden child in my family. I've never, it's always been a slap on the wrist. I've never gotten in trouble for anything. Well, I mean, the dude's been arrested for stealing sunglasses and I get what he's saying. But people always say, oh, it's just Jax, whatever. And Alex says, well, you're good at getting away with things. And he goes, if I got away with things, I got away with things, but this is something that I can't get away with anymore. I can't. It's going to kill me. It's not if, it's when. And Alex says, yeah, I mean, everyone around you has been concerned about this for a while. Let's talk about your relationship with Brittany. Obviously, that's a loaded question. Where are you guys now? He says, I don't know. I don't know. And they're like, did you talk to her today? And he goes, I did. Yeah. We had a little bit of a blow up last night. I mean, she's probably laughing, and it's literally daily. It changes. One day she's happy. One day she's mad. One day she's happy. One day she's mad. I never know what I'm going to get with her. Dude, yeah, but you also have to realize you are the cause of a lot of that up and down. Like, you have put somebody through this. I mean, this is a really big thing. And that's the thing that even, it's hard to accept when you have hurt other people. It's hard, So like there is, unfortunately, these are consequences, But he says, I walk on eggshells constantly every day as I should. I just want her to know that I'm really trying. I'm doing everything she asked, the rehab, the therapy, the drug testing, the getting help. I take care of my son as much as she allows me to. I don't know what else she wants from me. I'm doing everything that she's asked for, and just because I respect her and I want to make her happy, I don't want to be like, well, you're not even trying. I'm going above and beyond to show her that I do care, and I want to be in my son's life and also want to be in your life to some extent. I want to be there for you. That's why I moved a mile away. I couldn't move anywhere. I want in Hollywood, right? But when I moved, I wanted to be a 5-minute drive in case you needed me. I wanted to always be there for you. Remember, though, he didn't tell her he was moving. He just signed the paper during the first rehab stay. So that was like kind of a surprise to Brittany as well. Jax says, even if when she started dating and being with somebody, I'll always still be there. I wanted her to see that. We still have hiccups. Yeah, he said they just fought the night before. I still do stuff that pisses her off. I'm not a perfect human being. I'm nowhere near it. So I'm still going to have, incidents where I make her mad. It will never be with drinking or drugs again. But what happened was you have this hose, right? And there's holes in it. I patched one hole with the drinking and the alcohol, but now another hole opened. And I'll get into that other hole in a second. But the answer to your first question, it's day by day right now. It's going to take a lot of time. Anybody who's going through a divorce knows that to kind of rekindle or patch a relationship up with your ex is very, very difficult. There's a lot of animosity. There's a lot of hurt. Yes, there's a lot of things that have gone on. I just want to get to a place where we're good. I'm the type of person like, how can we fix things? How can I fix this? And this is going to be one of those things that takes time. And I'm just not, it's driving me crazy because I just want to fix the problem, right? Yeah, that's hard. Like, when you want things just fixed immediately, and it's really hard to accept that things sometimes take time. And Alex is like, yeah, I mean, she's been through a lot with you, And Jax goes, I think it's safe to say we kind of been through a lot with each other. Yes, I've got a lot of problems, a lot of issues, but we haven't been getting along for a very long time, and it takes two to argue. Can't argue by yourself. I think we just have been unhappy with our marriage for a long time. And I think we were just kind of sweeping it under the rug and not talking about it, why we're unhappy. We were just kind of going through the motions. And I think it really came to a head last season on the show. I think without even saying it, when we did the hotel stay and she brought up having another baby, I was kind of like, I was more about, being interested in talking about maybe if we should even stay together. We saw that last season on the Valley. I was just like, you're kidding me, right? I look back at it and I'm like, gosh, what if we would have had another kid? I'm like, God, thank God, So yeah, our relationship has been struggling for a very long time. I'm the type of person that I'm a self-sabotager. Instead of being a man and going and saying, listen, Brittany, I don't think this relationship is going where it needs to go. We need to end or whatever. Instead, I'm too much of a pussy in my head, and I'll just get angry and fight and make her leave me so I don't have to do it. I think that's very honest right there, right? He goes, that's what I did. I would constantly go out. I would go on benders. I would constantly come home hungover or drunk, and I would start a war hoping that she would leave me because I'm too much of an idiot. And Alex goes, then you wouldn't be that bad. Yeah, I wouldn't be the bad guy, he says. But then again, I'm the bad guy, of course. So anyway, regardless, but I've been like that with pretty much every girlfriend that I've had. I'll do something stupid so they break up with me, and that was the same situation. Alex says, what do you want to say to her? What do you want her to know or understand? Maybe that she, can hear right now. Jack says, I think she knows that I'm a good person deep down. I think down very, 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 very deep. I just think that I just want her to know that I do love her. Think she's an amazing person, a great mother. I just think our time is up. I think this probably is another thing that kind of, I'm just speculating, would hurt Brittany as well, because it's like, yeah, but you didn't tell me these things. You told a podcast, and he goes, she's just angry in the moment. We had great 10 years together. That's a decade. That's a long time in our world. And unfortunately, it had to come to an end. But I think we can beat the system. I think we can be like, what we had, a great 10 years. You're a piece of shit husband, but you're a great father and you're always there for me. That's what I want to say. Alex says, well, it seems like you guys have both arrived at the conclusion that you're better off not together. And almost it helps to know that, because that when you guys are spending time together, you're not wondering what if. And he goes, yeah, it's like you're walking on eggshells with each other. I get that question. I'm asked a lot. Like, what do you think you'll ever end up back with Brittany? And I'm like, unfortunately, no. It would just be a ticking time bomb for the next fight. Alex says, so you mentioned the garden hose analogy. The drugs and alcohol were two of the holes. You said there was another hole. And Jack says, I'm a very insecure human being. I said the hose was I patched the drugs and the alcohol. We put tape around it. We put a clamp on it. That's good. But now we have pressure from somewhere else, right? So now I'm trying to fill a void and I'm looking for approval. I need approval from other people, females, right? He says, I'm constantly seeking approval. I'm constantly looking for attention, making sure that I still got it. I guess whatever you call, I have a hard time just sitting in my own skin. It's insecurity. It's everything. I mean, during my separation, when I was at the bottom of the barrel, and even currently, I would just text random girls, who the hell will come over? Who's available? Oh God, he was on a rampage. Ugh. But he said, I'm just going to go down my roster. Just call anybody. I don't even care who they were. Just come over and telling them things that I didn't mean to say, just stuff that were like sexual, just the most absurd things that I would tell these people to get them to come over, to get them to hang out, to come over and basically just float my ego. And I would do that, and I got to fix that. That's a problem because I'm constantly looking for somebody to fill the void. I got to be careful. I got to figure out how to be comfortable in my own skin. So he is very aware of these issues. It's just putting it into practice is so flippin' hard. So anyways, he's admitting to this issue. And just needing approval from females. And to be honest, it's disgusting. It's really disgusting when you think about it. Why do you need to call these people? I was so hurt and angry. It got really bad when I found out that Brittany was hooking up with my friend Julian. 2 weeks after we separated, 2 weeks. So I knew in my head that she's been definitely texting him prior, because nobody hooks up with somebody that fast, especially a friend of mine. Bullshit, Jax. Bullshit. You literally just said I was just texting anybody in my roster. That's not true, Jax. So when I heard that, obviously, and that's was my low, that's when I was doing all the drugs and drinking. Now I amped it up even more. So I was doing a little bit. I was probably doing it maybe a couple times a week. Now I upped it to 3 to 4 times a week. I think he's talking about cocaine. And now I'm even more in my head. So I'm like, I'm going to call every fucking girl I know. I'm going to hurt her to the T. I'm going to literally sleep with whoever I can find. This was his pattern the whole time. It wasn't just now out of the blue. He's done this for a long time. It's scary. I'm a fucking father. Why couldn't I just think, Jack, stop for a second. You're a dad. You can't do this. You're a father. What is your son going to think? I didn't care. I was so into the drugs and the alcohol, and I was so upset that she hooked up with my friend, which is ironic because what have I done over the years? I hooked up with my friend's girlfriends too. Alex says, you have a storied history. Yeah, I have a storied history. I can't be that angry about it, but it happened to me, so I'm fucking hurt. I wanted her to feel the way I did. Like, I was like, okay, who can I call? So he just keeps talking about this, saying just being careless and reckless, lack of sleep. It was bad, just trying to be a rock star. But I was so defeated, even though I wanted Brittany to leave me. Like, that was the whole goal. And then it happened. And I'm like, shit, this is not what I thought it was going to be. I'm not as happy as I thought it was going to be. And Alex says, well, you're still processing it. And he goes, well, when it's your friend, like, I can only imagine how Tom Sandoval felt when I did this. Like, in my brain at these times, I was just like, why? Why do you care? So I was just like, Tom got over it, and I did that to him. And let's be honest, I did it too. Brittany too. It was her friend. So he's talking about like cheating with Kristen, cheating with, So when I look back on it and people are like, how, you did it too. I'm like, you're right. I did it too. I did. And that's why I can't be that angry, but I think it's my ego. My ego gets in the way of everything. Alex says, I think there's a difference between wanting her to leave you so that you didn't end the marriage and then also being hurt that she was moving on, especially when it's with your friend. They're two different things there. He says, they're two different things. I didn't necessarily think they were going to date or anything like that. It just hurt me because we were talking. We were talking a couple months after we separated. We would still hang out. And she said she wasn't dating anybody. And I found out by looking at her phone. I saw that she was texting this guy, Julian. And then I found out from Brittany's friend that it had been going on for months. And that's when I think he's talking about Lala here, but Lala says an opposite story, I believe. He says, I got played at my own game. Like I was tasting my own medicine for the first time. You got jaxed, Alex says. And he goes, I got jaxed. That's the best way to put it right there. I got jaxed. I've never been jaxed. So he says, yeah, just a lot of drugs and alcohol. And he saw red and he was just really pissed off. And he said, this guy, Julian, I took him under my wing. I got him a manager. I introduced him to my friends. I took him to games. He was coming to my bar. He was hooking up with her and still coming to my bar at the same time. I had no idea. And so a guy like me with this ego as big as the room, that's happening to me is a recipe for disaster. You just poke the bear. Kristen used to say this to me all the time. Don't poke the bear. Dodie always says that, and she was right. You don't poke me, and I lost it. I think those are my biggest. So it's just like obviously he's talking, then he goes to therapy. That's not a drug. There's nothing I can take for that. There's no magic pill I can take for that, like bipolar or whatever else. He's talking about his ego. This is something that I'm going to have to work on because it's been ingrained in my head for so long. Mind you, I've been in this industry since I was 20 years old. I've been told my whole life that I'm good looking. You go to the best parties. I started modeling. I was in New York, Milan, Paris, Australia, Chicago, runway modeling, being in this fake bubble where everyone thinks you're pretty and you're perfect and you're a good fuck. It's like you're putting in this capsule, right, for so long where you can do nothing wrong and you're judged basically on your looks. How do you think how insecure I am? Like, you come to big city like New York, in LA right now, you're in a, I was always the best looking person at the place. Now you throw me in a melting pot with New York and LA. Now everybody's good looking here. Everyone's egos are going to get bruised. Now I have to go to auditions. I never had to audition before. I just get the job now. But so he's just talking about his whole life and being insecure, even being good looking and coming to a place where there are other good looking people and having to live, having to get a paycheck. And he said it never really stopped because even with Vanderpump and all that, I think it just got bigger. I was already doing good, and then you get on this hit show and you just want to ride the wave. It's fun, and nobody's telling me no. We're having fun. We're having a good time. I think for the most part now, I look back, I wasn't. I thought for the most part I was keeping a lot of it under the radar, but clearly I wasn't. When I watch back, I'm like, Jesus, how big are my fucking pupils? Like, I'm sweating. Yeah, Jax, you saw what we saw, brother. Your pupils were huge. You were sweating your ass. He goes, there's no reason to be sweating in the scene. Why am I sweating? And Alex Baskin goes, there were some signs. He goes, yeah, there's different signs. And like, they did pull me aside a couple times and say, listen, calm down. They didn't know, but they were like, if they thought I was drinking too much, like relax on the drinking, they would say. So that's production a little bit. Alex says that's the hard thing on sort of behalf of production is, you know what you see. Jack says, but they weren't supplying us. I would like go off on my own. Like we would film a scene and like Jax, you have 30 minutes of downtime. So most people go rest. I would go to a bar, get lit or go next door from Sir. There was a Mexican restaurant that we all went to because we weren't allowed to drink during scenes, which was Tortilla Republic. And, during filming days, they all say no drinking during this. So certain times we go to parties, but we're doing important scenes. They were like, stay away from all that. But we'd sneak in the back alley at Tortilla Republic. We'd get a flask. Stassi would have a flask. We would be in there getting ripped before a scene was going. Nobody knew where we were. There were ways around it, which Mike the Situation in his book, we had him on the show last year. He said the same thing, just hiding shit from the Jersey Shore producers. There were ways around everything. And he was like on hard drugs. But we're like, oh no, we use drinking all day, so we need to find a way to do it. So that's how we cope with working at Sir and loving our job, and it's fun. This is why it's fun. If we didn't drink, then it sucks. It makes working at a restaurant boring, especially Sir, So we found a way to do it. I don't know where I'm going with this story, he says. Alex says something like, Kristen Sandoval was a good bartender. Jax was like, yeah, very good. But they would be full meltdowns in the restaurant. People would be waiting for their steak, and Kristen would be crying her eyes out because Tom did something. And we would be like, I'm sorry. We're like full drama while people are waiting for their food. And this is before we were filming the show, he says. And I think that's interesting, like hearing those earlier stories. He said he had a big test for Super Bowl because he went to a Super Bowl party, I think, at his bar, and he said, "Can I do this?" And I'm not eager to drink, but I've never been around that many drunk people since I've been sober. And I showed up to the Super Bowl. People are getting fucked up, eating hot wings. I'm in the corner eating a salad bowl. Like I'm the only one at Super Bowl Sunday that's literally completely sober eating a salad. Like I even took a picture of it. Like this is the new me, but it was okay. I got up a couple of times and I was a little bit, I would step outside. I didn't realize how much drinking and drugs played a huge role in my life. I'm still learning. I've been doing it for so long, and drinking and drugs, it gave me a superpower, if that makes any sense. Yeah, it totally makes sense. But he says, I can socialize. I can be the Jax that everybody knows, whether they like me or not. They get this persona of Jax Taylor. And I feel like now I've been off. I'm relearning myself because I feel like I'm very antisocial. Now I'm trying not to be. I'm worried that people aren't going to like me as much. They're not going to get the same guy that maybe they like. I won't be able to perform. I feel like the best way to put it, I've said this before, I felt like I was the lead singer for so many years. No, I was the lead singer, Lisa Vanderpump. No, Jack says it was my band. Now, I'm the number one guy in the group, but now I feel like I'm the bass player or possibly the guy who hits the triangle. And Alex Basson goes, you're the number one sober guy. Yeah, which was nice. And then Jack says, well, maybe Kristen's beating me right now, but we'll see. I mean, she's pregnant. Um, but then Jax goes, I do still smoke weed a little bit. Okay, that's the DJ James Kennedy. But he says, I need that to go to sleep. I prefer to do that over pills. So I guess I'm what you call California sober, and that's fine. Alex says, do you think Lala can help? And he goes, yeah, I think the situation, which is really funny because I just reached out to Sheena the other day because we haven't spoken in a long time. The girls are all very Team Brittany right now, which is understandable. I'm going to reach out to Lala when I hit 100 days. I'm just going to say, listen, I know you don't like me right now. I get it. This has nothing to do with my relationship with Brittany, but I'm wondering if I can just talk to you about being sober because I know, you were where I was. You were a train wreck too, and you admit it. It would be nice for us to talk about it. That's funny that you said that because I was thinking about that the other day. By the way, when Alex says things like that, I can only imagine as a producer, he's going, can we have a camera for that? Can we do that for season 3? Because that's a season 3 Valley scene right there, right? But he gives Lala credit of all the work she did to be sober. He says, I don't want to say an apology to her, but I am reaching out to everybody and kind of apologizing the way I treated Brittany, the way I treated everybody during this, drug and alcohol craziness. I was not a nice person. The drugs and alcohol make you such a fucking crazy person. But see, the core problem too is himself. He said he doesn't like people even without the drugs and alcohol. So I hope that, the one therapy session a week, that's what I worry about, right? Alex says, are you dreading the season to come on the Valley because we pick up on you at your lowest moment? And Jack goes, more than you know. It gives me severe anxiety, and I feel like I've said this so many times. I feel like this will be the hardest season of my life filming reality TV. I've had some doozies, as you know, but I feel like personally this is going to be very, very hard for so many reasons. I'm a father. I was married. It's not like back in the day when you're like, oh, you guys messed around and whatever. There were some intense shit, that faith thing. But he said these are big things, very different, and he's very scared, but that's why he wanted to come on here. He goes, we film hours and hours and hours, and unfortunately the TV show is only 45 minutes. There's only a certain amount of allotted time for each cast member, but I wanted to tell my story. Unfortunately, you don't hear it all. You're not going to hear it all on this season, he says. And Alex says, you were in a different place then, so you were going through it, and it's taken all of this to be able today to say what you did out loud. He goes, yeah, I'm not going to I'm proud of myself. I'm proud of myself right now. I feel really good. I'm as healthy as I've ever been. I have an addictive personality. I dive into everything. I'm really into talking in my therapy groups. Okay, he says, I'm getting ready for this podcast tour. I'm into talking in my therapy groups AA meetings. So he brings up AA meetings here. Why didn't he bring it up earlier in the interview? So this is great information if true, but he didn't. Why didn't he bring that up when he was asking about what you do? And he said, oh, I do my therapy. But AA meeting. Okay, so he says he is going to AA meetings. But he thinks he's meant to talk about these problems to other people. I want my goal, to be that. But he says, I've always been an open book. Well, you also said you're constantly lying as well. You can fucking hate me all day long. I don't care, but you're going to get an authentic Jax Taylor. And I pride myself on that. And I pride myself how successful Vanderpump Rules was, because 99% of the people on there everybody was authentic. Everybody was. And I'm not going to stop now with the Valley. And I said that before. You're always going to get true authenticity. And I said that to the rest of the cast too. This is our real lives. You're going to put it all out there. You're not going to hold back or don't be on the show. I'm not saying you have to be here, but if you can't do that, you can't be here. Yeah. But he just says, this is real life. This isn't fake bullshit. This is my real life. Be a little gentle, show some grace. Addiction is a disease. And that he's trying for the first time in his life to be completely honest. And this part of his journey. So that was Jax Taylor in his own words on Alex Baskin's Hot Mic podcast. You can listen to that yourself. I pretty much just recapped the entire thing, but if you want to hear it with Jax's voice, I'm sure you'll see clips as well. But I wanted to get that to you. What a show, you guys. We covered everything. This is a big one. Hope you have a great Wednesday. And give everybody grace, like Jax Taylor says. Wow. I think I'm just a little in shock from that interview. Let me know what you think. If you're watching this on YouTube, leave it in the comments. If you're listening on Spotify, give me a comment. And also any podcast app, consider giving us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Bye, guys.